Good evening. It is now 7 o'clock, May 12th, 2014. This is the meeting of the Canby Planning Commission. We have all 5 commissioners here present. We have 2 seats vacant. Applications are taken at City Hall Monday through Friday, approximately 8 to 5 o'clock for 2 remaining seats. Today, we have 1 public hearing and another number of other agenda items. The first item on our agenda is citizen input on non-agenda items. Are there any citizens that would like to speak to the Planning Commission tonight about non-agenda items? Not seeing anyone rise, we will next move on to the approval or consideration for approval of the Planning Commission minutes for April 14th, 2014 meeting. Does everyone have a copy? Looks like everyone got a copy in their packet.
Yep. Mr. Chair, having read the minutes, I would move that we approve the minutes as written.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Any discussion on the minutes? Not seeing any. All those in favor of approval of the minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed signify by saying nay. Or 5 ayes. No nays. Minutes are approved. Next, we have a public hearing, which is a 2-part public hearing. They're all part of the same public hearing, but the first one is to consider approving a site and design review for a proposed rebuild of the existing McDonald's restaurant located at 709 Southwest 1st Avenue, and for the Class 6 pool and spa property, that's what's currently located there, at 701 Southwest 1st Avenue. The proposed McDonald's includes a new building that will encompass both tax lots with added site improvements, drive aisles, and drive-through lanes. It's numbered DR 14-03, LLA 1402, and that is the first public hearing. With that said, we will open for our staff report.
Okay.
Oh, actually, let me read.
Are you going to read the
Yeah, I'm going to read here.
script, I guess?
For all of our public hearings, we have some statutory disclaimers and a statement that we read that gives people notification of their rights with respect to the meeting. So the matter that's presently before this hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter, please be prepared to step forward to the microphone at the appropriate time. State your name and interest in the matter. You can either sign in the testimony sheet in front, or you can give your name and information to Lainey if she's made available little slips to sign in on. For those people other than the applicants that are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please indicate your desire on the sheet at the front or any slips that Lainey has available. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In doing so, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. You will be limited by time for your presentation. Generally, the applicant will have a total of 15 minutes to speak. The proponents will be given 5 minutes each. The opponents will be given 5 minutes each, and those thought to be neutral on the matter will be given 5 minutes each. The applicants will then have 10 minutes for rebuttal. All questions must be directed through the chair. The commissioners may ask you questions during your presentation, so be prepared for that. Any evidence to be considered and questions asked by the commissions will generally not be deducted from your time. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access to become part of the record. All written testimony received both for and against prior to the hearing shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staffing report. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable review criteria contained as indicated in the staff report, comprehensive plan, or the applicable land use regulations which the person believes apply or not apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government to respond to any issue may preclude an action for damages in circuit court. Everyone present is encouraged to testify, even if it's only to concur with previous testimony. Next, we'll ask if there's any conflicts of interest. Are there any members of the Planning Commission who have a conflict of interest, actual or potential? Please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate or abstain in hearing on the present matter. Are there any conflicts?
No.
Don't see any conflicts. With respect to ex parte contacts, is there any member of the Planning Commission that has had any ex parte contacts with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site? Please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time. I'll be the first. I was at McDonald's on Saturday night with my kids, and I heard some folks in the playground talking about this.
Well, I'll be the next to declare because I had the Big Mac and an order of fries there 2 weeks ago, so.
Likewise.
I think we've all been there.
Know where it's at.
Okay. The more important piece to that, is there any member of the audience that has any questions for the commissioners regarding conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts? Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if I fully understand your question. I have a little question when it comes to the,
No, this is only for, thank you, this is only for if you wanted to challenge any commissioner's ability to
No.
participate based on conflicts of
Okay.
interest or ex parte contacts. But you will have a chance if you want to ask questions or give input. So with respect to the public hearing format, which is probably what you were getting at, public hearing will be conducted as follows. First will be the staff report. Second will be questions from the Planning Commission of staff and discussion between the Planning Commission and staff of those questions. Then we will open public hearing for testimony. First will be from the applicant, and they'll have 15 minutes. Then other proponents will be given a chance to speak, not more than 5 minutes each. Then we'll be given a chance to opponents. They can have 5 minutes each. Then we will open it for any neutral individuals. During the proponent, opponent, or neutral time, you certainly can raise issues that you think we might want to consider. You can raise questions if you think there's a question we should consider. And then we will have rebuttal time for the applicant to rebut any comments or questions or any other testimony at the end, which is limited to not more than 10 minutes. And we'll close public testimony. Planning Commission will ask any questions of anyone they want to, and then we will close the public hearing part and move just to discussion and deliberation amongst Planning Commission, and then we'll render our decision. Are there any questions about the procedure outlined for this hearing? Okay. Back to staff, who will give a
Thank you,
report?
Chair. I'll be giving this report tonight. Brian Brown, the Planning Director. The application consisted of a design review and also a lot line adjustment. And I might explain the lot line adjustment. It's being utilized, that application, in order to consolidate the two lots, the current tax lot that McDonald's is located on, and then the adjacent tax lot to the east where the pool and spa building exists today, in order to consolidate those into a single tax lot, because you're really not supposed to build over an existing tax lot line. And so the new building would be doing that. And so think of it as a lot consolidation application. And since those don't normally require your approval, we just slid it right in together so you'd fully understand the application that's in front of you. This outlines the two tax lots that we're talking about, located at the intersection of South Birch and West Highway 99E, or First Avenue, as we call it. And this particular plan that was submitted by the applicant shows the existing conditions on the site. So here you can see, maybe this one will point it out, the existing McDonald's building here. You've got your entrance off of Second here, and you've got a right turn only exit out here onto the highway at this location. Then the adjacent tax lot has this existing pool and spa building located on it, and they're currently sharing a common driveway on this property boundary here. with the next property on to the east of them. One of the other things that this drawing of existing conditions clearly shows, and we'll be talking about that a little bit further, is it shows where the existing sidewalks are located all around this site, and they all have sidewalks. They're 5 foot wide on Second and on Birch Street, and 8 foot wide along the highway, and they're all curb tight, hugging the curb all around the site. This is their submitted site plan, so it's proposing the new building. The new building is 4,597 square feet, which is about 1,300 square feet bigger than the existing McDonald's. And it's located further to the west, so that utilizes that additional tax lot, so they can enlarge the site. And by doing such, they end up with, I believe it's 38 parking spaces, which is more than they had. And a primary importance when they first designed and laid this out was to provide a better drive-through situation for this particular one. So they actually have 2 different lanes that can feed into the drive-through pickup. And this configuration was evaluated by the traffic analysis that was done through DKS and submitted for this. And it solves the number one problem that the existing McDonald's has, which is traffic coming into the site on Second and not being able to get fully inside the site when they're waiting at the drive-up window, and therefore clogging up traffic on Second, trying to get into the site. And this completely eliminates that. They have plenty of stacking, and even if they were to get more busy than anyone plans, they're not going to be stacking into Second any longer. And there's plenty of room to keep any problems from impacting entrance off the highway, so that shouldn't be an issue as well. So they've done a good job in accommodating the drive-through on this particular plan. They also are proposing a one-way flow off Second here to come into the site this way, so that you can actually bypass the drive-through and circle back around on the site and park or come through to use the drive-through in that manner as well. Here's some facade renderings or elevations that show us basically what this is going to look like and the materials that they're using with the kind of stone veneer and a standard looking modernized version for McDonald's. There's been quite a few redone McDonald's in the Portland metro area recently, and so you can pretty much drive anywhere and you'll see pretty much a kind of similar looking to some of the others that have been updated. Certainly more attractive appearing building than is currently there, which is starting to become a bit outdated. So that's all I have to say about that, I guess, at this point. But this shows the facade on all directions. And I included just real quick a kind of truck turning template that they provided, because it's pretty important. They don't have deliveries very often, but this shows that they can actually get off the highway and into the site through this full-service driveway that also has an island in it that's trying to direct the flow of traffic. However, although they can get in the site heading westward and turning left off the highway, they won't be able to turn in the site with a large truck like this coming into town. So it's only a one-way ability to get in there. And they generally schedule those when there's not a lot of traffic on the sites, so it's not a problem. parking and getting through wherever they need to at that time.
Right, can I pause you for 1 second?
Yeah.
Is your staff report put in the record? Because I don't think we have these last two maps. And I noticed that last month, that we had some presentations of one of the applicants or somebody was putting in. We need to make sure that everything that is looked at, maps or documents.
I honestly don't know whether we've made a hard copy of this in our file or not, which is sitting here on the dais.
Well, we can make sure we do that.
That we can try to do that.
Include all that stuff in
Yep.
it.
We do so much electronically now that we don't always think of printing them out and putting
And
them
I'm fine
there
with
as
that as
well.
long as by the end of the meeting, it's in the public record for people to review.
So, a couple issues of note with this application. They indicated in their submittal that there were two items for which this application didn't meet the code standards. One of them was with the floor area ratio of 0.25. That's required by our downtown Canby overlay, outer highway commercial sub-area district requirements. And the other one is compliance with the requirement that 40% of the building frontage be at a 10-foot setback from the front property boundary, which would be along the highway frontage. And in evaluation of those, there's not a whole lot that can be said other than the fact that it would be highly unusual for any drive-through restaurant to meet these standards. And typically, drive-through restaurants, because of their need for the drive-through windows and such, they pretty much need circulation all around the entire site. And so it would be very difficult for them to comply with either of these requirements. And so we made it, applicant and staff just making it clear that you're aware of those two items and that you're looking for, in this request, an exception or a waiver of those requirements should you approve this. And I already pointed out the fact that all the existing sidewalks are curb tight on this site, and typically our street cross sections today that are adopted either in the transportation system plan or in this case for the highway, the Canby corridor and gateway design plan, indicate that there is generally a planter strip now required curb tight, and then the sidewalk is set back, so that normally you would now be planting street trees in that planter strip that's near the street, and that provides the extra separation, gives a more friendly pedestrian environment if the sidewalk's separated from the curb, especially when you have busy collector or arterial streets. That's a kind of desirable feature. So the gateway plan did call for a planter strip curb tight, and then the sidewalk being separated. And there's a couple variety of reasons actually why that is not being proposed with this site. We had ODOT representatives at the early pre-application meetings sitting with us and debating the merits of tearing up the existing sidewalks and putting the planter strips next to the highway. And one thing was the fact that the sidewalks are actually in pretty good shape. And so with other than handicap accessible ramps at the driveway intersections, they're, for the most part, could be retained without that extra expense by leaving them where they're at. There's also the issue, the primary reason to do planter strips next to the highway is to provide the street trees, and there's a sight distance problem that's especially relevant on the highway, and it's a higher speed roadway, and you have Birch Street that comes in at an angle, which makes sight distance even more important in trying to get out on the highway at that particular location. And there's was some concern voiced about planting new trees that would potentially be in that sight distance and potentially cause a hazard. And so when really faced with the practicality of putting those trees in, everybody pretty much agreed that it probably wasn't the best thing to put in street trees this close to their
Maybe
new
our city
driveway.
council will take note of the street tree ordinance and consider. I bet there's some ears here that might be interested.
So I think that was the main thing here. Let's see. On our traffic analysis for this particular thing, the First Avenue driveway, since it is on the state highway, which is designated a regional highway and a federally designated truck route, ODOT is very much attuned to making sure that they don't make a situation any worse when new development is proposed on their highway in terms of access and how it will impact the current traffic on the roadway. And so ODOT basically is in charge of where the driveways would be allowed, and it took them quite some time working with the applicant and with the traffic analysis that was done by DKS to finally approve the driveway location. And they did approve a full-service driveway, which is more than the current McDonald's had. But they did want it separated further from the Birch Street intersection. And so they've done that, and in the process, they were able to basically eliminate one driveway from the two tax lots, since each one had a driveway. And so now those two tax lots will be sharing the one proposed driveway. And I think that's the primary reason why ODOT went ahead and approved, in concept, the driveway that's shown on the site plan that you're looking at. ODOT does require a driveway permit or approach application, and that application has been made by the applicant, but it hasn't actually been formally approved yet through their process. So that'll happen subsequent to this hearing during the construction phase of this development, should you approve it. I already talked about the benefits of this proposed design in eliminating the big headaches that we've had with stacking, interrupting Second Avenue. And in the traffic analysis, they indicated that there wasn't enough increased traffic over and above the existing McDonald's to warrant any off-site analysis at the nearby intersections. And so, if you were wondering about that, they didn't study intersections as a result of this development. It was very nice when you get a larger outfit that does a lot of development across the country, and they do their homework on their sites, and they've submitted a Phase 1 environmental assessment, and it was very interesting reading through that to see the history of this property and some of the properties that are surrounding it, and in this case, looking at environmental issues. And so one of these nearby properties had now I'm trying to remember, I've forgotten whether it was on this property or not. You might have to ask the applicant. There was a gasoline service station, I think on the Pool and Spa property that they're enlarging onto. And then in 65, there's a large rectangular building that was built on the sites. And then I think around 1996 is when it indicated that the current McDonald's restaurant was constructed on the site. And the classic Pool and Spa building was at its current footprint about that time as well.
Brian, am I missing something? We don't have any approval criteria that have anything to do with environmental assessment, do we?
We do not, but it's a, actually, I'm trying to remember. I may have to look that up during the break, because we might. I think,
Must have been triggered by something.
yeah,
Someone else, some others.
there's something that triggers that. It could be just the fact that, I think the trigger is before a building permit. You are required to do that when you're tearing down an existing building. And I think that's why, and that's why I'm showing this, is because in this case, they're going to be tearing down
The
an existing
1200C
building.
permit?
It's not the
something
1200C.
else, okay.
It's requirements to check for asbestos and those kind
But
of
it's not
things
a-
in
It's not a
buildings.
can-be requirement.
It's not in our Chapter 16.
Okay.
They do need to check with DEQ with regards to analyzing any of these underground storage tanks or anything like that that might be related with the previous gas station and stuff on the site. They also did a geotechnical investigation of the site, and that's important in relation to the stormwater plan that's being proposed and such. And in this particular site, they found some no actionable items, but reported leaks on a nearby property on the high school back when there was a bus storage barn that was decommissioned and such. But no other problems related to that with this property. And on our drainage plan, they did submit basically a concept on how they're dealing with that. And right now, the storm water is being directed to the highway right-of-way. And they're actually going to propose some low-impact facilities on the south side of this site as well, but I'm not quite certain exactly how the division of the water is running between those two things. But the concept seems reasonable on what they're proposing to do with stormwater, and it will be fleshed out during the construction period and reviewed by our city engineer for conformance with our Public Works design standards. As far as recommendation, the staff has recommended that the Planning Commission approve this site and design review and its associated lot line adjustment pursuant to the conditions of approval that we've included in the staff report. And at this point, I guess I'm not going to go through all of those. A good deal of them are fairly standard boilerplate type conditions. But if you have any questions, be sure to try to answer those for you. That concludes the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Next, we will move to the applicant. Please remember to state your name and your address for the record.
Good evening, my name is Mike Cerbone. I'm a land use planner with Cardno. My address is 5415 Southwest Westgate Drive, Portland, Oregon, 97221. I have with me here this evening Seth Gray. He's a professional engineer, so he can answer any questions that might have to do with the stormwater design or the site grading or layout, utilities. I also have Doug Bates, who's a representative from McDonald's, and then we also have the owner of the franchise here, Mindy. So if there's questions about how the business will be operated or how typically things are operated in terms of the McDonald's or kind of the whole approach for how they're redoing stores in the region, those guys can answer those questions. So just real quick, Brian did a great job explaining a lot of the background information. You know, what happened here is they are going around in the region, they are upgrading their stores, and so they looked at Canby, they wanted to upgrade the store, upgrade the image, and at the same time try and resolve some of the situations that Brian highlighted. One of those was making sure that the queuing issue was addressed so that they had a safe and efficient access to the site. People who wanted to use the drive-through could get into the site. People who wanted to actually come and park and go in and patronize the store could do that as well. And then people walking there, they also have a lot of folks that walk there from the high school during lunch, so that they can also get in as well. In redeveloping the site, they did kind of solve some other issues along 99. You guys have a lot of driveways along 99. You're familiar with ODOT, and their goal is to try and consolidate those accesses along the 99 corridor. So in this instance, they are building a larger store. It's about 1,000 square feet larger. They are moving to the property immediately adjacent to them. They are consolidating, closing one driveway that's on the property, and they're actually moving that driveway further away from the intersection with Birch. So that does several safety things. It provides more time for people to react when people are coming off Birch and entering or exiting the business. And it also provides less interaction points where pedestrians that are traveling along 99 could be potentially hit by cars that are entering or exiting properties. Just real quick, there's 37 parking spaces. The truck turning exhibit that Brian had shown up there is in the DKS, so it's in that traffic report. It's probably towards the back. I know I only read like the first 3 or 4 pages, they actually tell me what's going on. That's at the back with the exhibits. The phase one, Brian, hit the nail on the head. We always do phase ones whenever we purchase property, our clients purchase property, we need to understand what we're buying. Typically that's finance, so we need to understand what's there, what could potentially be there, and what the environmental liabilities are. But then also at the time of building development review, if we do have asbestos, we need to plan for that, provide plans for how that's going to be safely removed from the building and hauled off from the site. So, I don't want to take up too much time. I know there are some folks here that do have questions, and the Blazers are hopefully not playing their last game tonight. So I can answer any questions about the land use application that you have. Again, Seth Gray is here, he's my civil engineer. He can answer any questions that you guys might have about the design. If you have detailed questions about the stormwater design, we can answer that, but as Brian said, it is a mixture of a low impact development, so there's a swale in the back that's probably going to cover about a quarter of the impervious area on the site, and then the other stormwater on the site will go into a catchment basin where it'll be filtered, kind of like a Brita filter, and then go out into the stormwater that's out in 99, the existing stormwater line.
Does the applicant have any concerns or requests, or happy with the conditions proposed by staff?
The conditions, those seem fair to us in terms of what's being expected. We did review the conditions with ODOT and with staff prior, and, we're in agreement with basically what Brian said. We can go over and talk more about the sidewalk on 99, but he did a very good job explaining. I mean, essentially, there could potentially be one tree in that entire strip, but everything else would have to be, you could require it, but when we got to permitting with ODOT, they would pull it out. And a good example of that is I did a project on Canyon Drive, which is over in Washington County, and we were conditioned to provide street trees 35 feet on center along that roadway, and we actually were requested by ODOT during the 1-year kind of review period to go and pull out all the street trees. Previously, they thought that, just having the small pole was not going to impact site distance, but their studies are showing that those are actually, they catch your eye and they pull you away from what you're supposed to be looking at, which is the vehicle moving.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir. And I signed in the sheet right there.
Okay. Are there any other proponents that would like to speak on this? Sir, if you, ma'am, you're
I
the,
didn't sign up.
Oh, you can go ahead.
let me make sure I ask somebody on the applicant's side the question that we may have more audience members than typical tonight. We may have a couple hundred kids watching and know if you're going to have a play structure there or not.
I just want to tell you, they were a little off on the date. I built that store in 1993, and it's just been a pleasure to be in Canby. I've done a lot for the community. If you recall, the first I had a playland. It's like one of the smallest McDonald's sites there was, but I had the littlest playland, and then I squeezed in that, the indoor one. And, I've been so happy to have, the kids from the school, and then we have the Canby kids, all the sporting events that come, that there's a place for them to be there. And I've had a lot of pride to have that. I have other locations. This was my first, I called it my signature McDonald's. My initials are up in there. And I built it with my son, who's now passed away. So anyway, I love this community, and I do want to put a playland into the site, and I just appreciate being in this community. So that's all. I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Any questions for? Okay. You're an engineer?
No, I'm with McDonald's Corporation.
Okay, go ahead. Please state your name and some sort of a mailing address.
I have my name up there. Will that do it? Or do I need it here
Elaine, do you
too?
have?
I have his
Okay.
information.
You good? Okay. I'm the area construction manager that be overseeing this project, and this project wouldn't be feasible without the additional property that we're purchasing. And again, Mindy was talking about how small and cramped the restaurant is, and that's why. We only had a certain size site, so that's all we could build at the time. But this gives us the opportunity to really maximize the site, to put the site circulation in proper order, maximize the drive-through. There's 78%, on average across the country, 70% of our business comes through a drive-through. So if that drive-through isn't efficient and operating correctly, we're losing money. So we have the opportunity here to give it really the AAA, postage stamp on the layout, because it does create tremendous queuing with the side-by-side as well. But not only that, but the site safety is a big issue too. So making sure we have the traffic going around the site and organized, and the site lighting will also support that. So those are the real issues when we go to rebuild a site, that we try and put all that in order and do it the right way.
Now, on the, one of the maps I noted that had the curved, I don't know what you call it, the bumper, so page 72, do we have the map showing the flow? It's our page 72.
Only have the site plan
One of them shows the sort of triangular shaped bumper or whatever off of 99. Does that allow for, there we go, at the top, where's my laser?
Yes.
Yeah, this thing, does that allow for both right and left turns off of
Correct.
99?
Correct.
Okay.
That was something we asked ODOT in relocating the driveway and making it wider, not only for the delivery truck as well, but to be able to turn both ways.
Okay.
And so they supported that, especially with closing one of the driveways down, the shared one that we had, have today, but with the property that we're purchasing.
So as opposed to currently where you only have a right turn exit from
Correct.
99, you'll have an entrance and an exit
Correct.
off of 99.
Correct. And the traffic study has been done to analyze that. So we have, and all that information went to ODOT, and they're very comfortable with this. The striping you see with the little island is really striping. So there's nothing physically there. Is that correct? Is it raised?
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
striped.
Yeah, so
this
that'll
has any
help.
stripes here?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Correct. So it's just striped there, and then also on the south edge there, same thing.
This
So that
part
it's
here?
flared, big enough, yes. So any vehicle pulling, trailer, or, boat or anything can easily navigate that turn in.
Any other questions for the gentleman?
Yes, I have one. This area right here, is this for refuse disposal, for storage of it, or?
Correct,
what-
correct. That would be
that's
our
what-
trash corral. And it'll have gates on it, I think on the elevations, color elevations, they're there. So you'll have a pair of big gates on that, on the front.
What's proposed, if I'm not mistaken, the existing lot doesn't have anything separating the pool, where the current pool and spa property is, from the pump property. What's proposed on the edge here?
What we are, the way we're thinking right now is that from where it jogs, essentially, right at the edge of the parking, and I guess would be east or towards the bottom here, that a fence would remain between the two properties there. We had originally thought a fence would go all the way, but we wanted the opportunity for the employees and customers next door to be able to more easily access the site. So at this point, we're not proposing a fence all the way up through that part where the parking stalls are.
Okay.
But there is a fair amount of landscaping, and there's also going to be a hedge that'll be maintained to provide that kind
Okay.
of visual blocking of the headlights.
I have a question. So, being in this area, I know that when the high schoolers come across this area, there's no real one spot that they come across. Is there a crosswalk proposed here someplace, just at the corner?
If there's a crosswalk there, it might be at the corner. I'm not that familiar with where the crosswalk is today, if there is one. There is not one mid-block, I don't believe.
Right now, there's a partial sidewalk that comes through right at the drive-through area. It comes from the high school, and that's normally where they come
Yes.
across right there.
Yes.
But I'm not seeing anything here to
Well, what we have right in front of the trash corral is actually going to be the pedestrian route
Okay,
from that direction.
gotcha.
So we're repositioning it.
Okay.
And we're trying to do that in front of the merge point of the drive-through for safety.
That's kind of what I was looking for, because there's going to be an issue there with the high schoolers that come across. It's-
Well, they're going to cross it.
Talking about right
You know, they are who they are. but-
They are.
But this is the planned route, to
Okay.
try and, make it as simple
Right.
and as easy for them to understand.
So that again is some sort of a striped pavement or painted pavement or something?
This would be striping across the paved areas here,
Okay.
and then a sidewalk here.
Okay.
And that's shown on C2.0, your second page.
Any other questions for the applicant? For the representative? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other proponents? We'll go to neutral first, if you want to bring it, or opponents?
I have any question I need to ask.
Go ahead, come on up, state your name and your address for the record, so with,
I'm Randy Yoder from Fisher's Supply next door.
okay.
Okay, and we're at 659 Southwest First Avenue. And I welcome my new neighbor. Mindy seems like a great person, okay, I've met her before. And so this is, we're excited about it, my employees are excited about it. But I have one simple question, and can I point out what I'm getting at here? If any of you want to come over to our place and view this, you can get a good visual on this. There's a shared driveway between the pool and spa and myself. And if you look at the property line, it looks like it cuts about a third of my driveway, what I call my driveway. I don't know how it really lays, but it looks like I lose about a third of that entrance. And I have a minimum about a half dozen semi-trucks a day come in and out of my facility, so my question is to the McDonald's people, and Mindy, is I don't know how that's being approached. If this line is going straight to the sidewalk and a fence is going right to the sidewalk, I've got a really terrible driveway now. And so is there anything that could be done because they won't be utilizing what we call our driveway at this point, it looks like. Can that be angled to where I can retain my driveway? All my employees are on me about this, and they said, "You're going tonight to talk about this, aren't you?" And I said, well, that's my concern. And if any of you want to come over to Fisher Supply, Monday through Friday and see me, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Because I don't know what the true property line here is. There is a fence, and it runs currently up to the point of, well, there's a power pole here. Anyways, but it runs approximately right into here, and that's about as far as the fence goes. And then you'd have parking right in here that would be in front of the pre-existing pool and spa business here. And so we share, pool and spa business and myself have always just shared parking space. Some of their customers may park at my store, we try not to park in their spots. But if you look at the spray paint on the ground, I don't know if that's they came out several months ago, And I don't know if that was people doing the layout here, property lines, et cetera. I don't know where that true line is, but if you look straight in line with the fence, I just lost about a third of my entrance, which makes it really tough for my semi-trucks now to get in and out. And so, that's my only question, guys.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't want to, I'm not trying to throw anything negative in their way. I'm just trying to think, is there a happy medium here that I can hopefully retain my driveway? And that's, if you were there, you'd understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
I signed there, but you still want me to sign here?
Just make sure we have your name and your address. It's important for mailings. If there's ever any future mailings that come out about this, you're entitled to get notice and follow up on it. Thank you. Just to clarify for everybody, the gentleman, Mr. Yoder, had mentioned, a question. I think he was talking more rhetorically, but just so everybody knows, and so you know, and everybody that's watching knows, public hearings aren't question and answer for the commission to answer questions. It's really an opportunity for the applicant, the public, the opponents to present their arguments, their facts, and then we come to the conclusion based on the code, based on what's presented to us. So we sort of have to be presented with something or persuaded on particular aspects. We don't really answer questions. Sometimes it works out where we can facilitate aspects of a land use application that makes everybody happy, but our job is really basically to make the determinations. So we don't really answer questions per se. I don't think yours was somewhat rhetorical, but I just wanted to make sure you understood that.
First time I've ever been to one of these.
Yeah, that's why, no problem. Okay, are there any other opponents? Neutral? I don't think there's anybody else that hasn't spoken, so. Okay, the rebuttal, and if you could please make your best attempt to address this gentleman's driveway concerns too, and so you can inform us.
Definitely. So, again, Mike Serbone with Cardno, representing the applicant. So the big issue that was brought up, I guess, that I'll spend some time chatting about, because I think everything else we're on the same page so far, is the driveway. And on the existing conditions plan, which is C1.0, you can see where the existing fence line is, which is essentially the property line. So it shows that line coming directly in, and you see the driveway labeled as DRWY. And so that's the driveway.
Let me pause you for a minute. This won't count against your time.
Sure.
Do we have that labeled with that?
And it's on the slide right here, if you want to point out what you're...
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
why don't
it should be the second.
Rewind and tell us again, because
Sure.
our maps are similar to that, but they're...
Sure. So this is the existing conditions plan. This is the property line here that I was talking about, and the round circle here is where the property line hits the right-of-way. So this is the driveway that's right here that was just referenced. And then you see squares on either side. Those are essentially the ramps. So those go from the grade up to the sidewalk, the 6-inch raise. And so, one of the things we can do is we can work with ODOT so that we can have a transition here that allow the trucks easier to turn into the site. But allowing the driveway to remain on the site's going to eat into the circulation and the landscape requirements that we have on the site. We are willing to work with ODOT to try and make that flat spot, that spot that receives the vehicles, so that they can get a little extra turning movement when they come in. But the shared driveway, that's something that's been in practice, but I don't think that was ever recorded on either of the deeds. At least we didn't find it on either of the deeds when we did the research. There is a second access to his property as well, which provides for access to the site. But at this point, addressing or keeping the full driveway the way it is going to actually, again, it would come onto the property, it would clip that whole corner. And so if you went back to the site plan and looked at the site plan, you would essentially have that clipping the parking and the drive aisle on the backside of the building. And then you would also have that driveway relatively close to the proposed driveway. And so ODOT does have minimum spacing standards between driveways as well. So I don't know whether I answered the question the way it was wanted to be answered, but, I did do my best to provide you the information that I have.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, questions.
So are you going to take out half of that drop down then? Is that the plan at the moment?
So when you say drop down,
The actual drop to the street? the
Yeah,
flat?
yeah, essentially what we would do is we'd move that, we're proposing to move that, if you look at the site plan, that transition area would begin on our property and it would be flat on the property line. So, it would, when it hit his property line, he would be flush with the roadway. And it looks like it's about 8 feet back from our property line is where we'll start transitioning that ramp down. And what I had said is, if you look at the site plan, which I think is popped up there right now, we can work with ODOT to try and get that transition pushed further back here. So when the vehicles are making the turn movement, they have kind of a wider breadth to be able to get through there, and it is more flat.
Do you have any idea how wide his remaining driveway will be once it's changed?
I could approximate it. You got a scale?
Yeah.
Are you measuring it? Okay. That's why it's good to bring the engineers, they know how to measure. It's looking like,
Maybe 20, the flat area would be 21.
do you want to go back to the existing conditions plan? Thanks, Angie. So just a good way to kind of look at these is these squares are about 8 by 8. So just kind of, that's how I measure things. Seth uses an actual scale. So there would still be 21 feet from the flat area, to the property line where it'd be flat. So it'd be about 21 feet through here.
And what does he have now? What's the share?
What's the distance now, Seth? About 30, 36? I'm not sure what the standard commercial driveway
Well, before I
is.
ask staff, because we'll get into that when we discuss, I'm certainly going to ask staff for their opinion on this. Do you guys have any, opinion on what ODOT's requirements are for a driveway off of 99?
ODOT has requirements in terms of spacing distance.
With the width of
Do they have an actual width?
the entrance.
Seth Gray with Cardinal. I sat down with ODOT very early on in this project, and really this is how we got to where we were, was based on their recommendations. I don't know offhand if they have a minimum standard, but this has been what has been talked about. And then, as Michael pointed out, ODOT does have a standard that will allow about a 7-foot taper. So the flat spot within the concrete sidewalk would then be closer to 28 feet and allow that turning movement into the site. But, we did sit down, they knew about that, and they referenced that the site already has another existing access. So this is their second highway access.
That comes down to that fun term ODOT uses, which is access management. And so they try to, through the development review process, minimize, reduce accesses onto the primary arterials. So the only other thing I would say is that once I leave, you can't ask us any more questions. So I know this is a concern for you guys and you want to talk to staff about it, but if there's any other questions that you have that you need us to respond to or would like us to respond to before you go into deliberations, I would urge you to take that opportunity right now.
And it does happen occasionally that we ask questions during deliberation, I have to admit. Even though it's formally, it's not normal.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You said that you do have, ODOT will give you some leeway on that?
I said,
Your engineer said that.
ODOT does have a standard that allows for that style of driveway. We can definitely propose that to them, but ultimately they have the ultimate.
They have the final say.
They have the ultimate say for everything that happens in there right away. But there's no reason why McDonald's, as the applicant, would be opposed to doing that.
No,
You know, that's,
you know, if they will, work with us on a solution for that, we're fine with that. We want to be good neighbors too.
yeah.
And ODOT is a challenge to work with. We started a conversation with them back last December, and it's taken this long to get here because of the discussions and dialogue back and forth. But, I'd certainly entertain it.
And we have to rebuild that portion of the sidewalk anyway, so in terms of how we do that, it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other, so we're more than happy to do it.
Now, my concern is that approving one use doesn't materially impact, the neighboring use. Would the applicant, and what I'm thinking of in this, the sort of a worst-case scenario is that because the size gets reduced, ODOT comes around and says, all right, neighbor, you now only get to have one access because that was reduced below our minimum size or whatever. Would the applicant be opposed to some sort of a condition stating, that they, would have to, I don't know, I'm brainstorming here, not locate things in such a way that it would close off that?
Well, again, the concern we would have is that it would impact our ability to utilize the property as we'd like to. ODOT can't compel the neighbor to do anything to his access until he wants to change the use on his property or redevelop a portion of his property. So they don't have a mechanism to go through and force him to do that. It's during this type of land use action and this type of proceeding where they have that mechanism and that authority.
Unless they have conditions attached to his access permit.
If he has a specific deeded access permit, then that is we did not find anything on our property that had that.
And I did speak with ODOT about this driveway, and they said that this driveway was not going to require a new approach permit. That wasn't going to be under review.
Will that 7-foot leeway that you got there, that if it angles in, will that screw up your landscaping?
Well, that'll be all entirely within ODOT's right-of-way and the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So it won't
really
affect-
wouldn't have any effect on
Wouldn't have
your
any
landscape.
effect on our site.
So basically, you wouldn't object to doing that if ODOT went along with it?
If ODOT will approve it.
And that would be the easiest thing for all of us, because it would make the neighbor happy, and, we do want to be good neighbors, but at the same time, the property wasn't free. They had to buy it, and, that's why they bought it, was to expand the business.
Yeah.
There is one thing I did want to share. Our neighbor does have another driveway north of that he has access to, so, and uses. So he basically has 2 driveways on this parcel to use. So that isn't the only one, but that allows, it allows a good one-way flow around the building.
I believe the issue was the large delivery trucks, though, not so much the vehicles.
The semi-trucks, the long ones, cannot circle my building.
Right.
And that's where the problem lies.
You got about, 2 car widths between the storefront and the sidewalk? It's very narrow, right? Yeah.
You've seen it probably.
Yeah.
So they park in front of my store, and then I offload there, whether it's truckloads of pipe or salt or whatever. And so the truck drivers never complain. They get in, they get out. But it takes, usually they're coming in one and going out the other. And even at that, they're usually hopping the curb, okay? And it's just, you start getting 48-foot trailers in there, and that's what you got.
Would that extra 7 feet be of much help or not?
Pardon?
If the ODOT allowed that extra 7 feet there, would that do you any good or not?
Hey, I guess the way to answer that is, we're just fine just the way we are. If I lose some of that driveway, then my trucks are just gonna be hopping off the curb is what they're gonna be doing.
Well, it looks like you're gonna lose some of that driveway
Yeah.
no matter what.
Yeah, and that was my question, was, is there any chance that right corner, right at the sidewalk out there, so to speak, if I could retain it? I understand the pool and spa business has a driveway, and it's a shared driveway with me, and it's just, but it's
Well, you understand, he's saying that he could, from the from the, see if I'm right now, from the property line, ODOT will give them a variance of 7 feet, right?
Yeah, they'll allow you
We don't have it. We're willing to
We
work
don't have
with
a
them
permit
to.
for that.
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
right of way.
They would be willing to do that if ODOT, would that help?
Oh, yeah, I believe
Yeah,
so,
so-
yes.
Because that would keep you from jumping the curb. And then the big issue would be whether he hits the landscape curve on the backside. So,
It sounds like
Do
they're
you have an
willing
aerial?
to do that
By
if
chance,
ODOT will let them.
okay.
That's, the curb that's right in front of the pool and spa business has never come into play.
So I'm just, and, you know, it's been a while since I've been back there. Is there a reason why I can't pull through and then pull
Let
through
me-
second?
Let me get back so that we can track things and take turns
Okay.
and have
Sure.
everything on the public record.
Sure.
So, I don't mind, we need to have everything directed up here to the commission.
Yes, Chair.
And if we want to ask questions back down. I appreciate everybody's trying to work together. We're pretty good about that, but it can sometimes have its downsides.
So Chair, if you have the narrative that we submitted on page 7,
Okay?
it's not the best aerial, but you have an aerial of the area. And what it is the zoning map overlaid on an aerial. And the question I asked is there's 2 driveways on the adjacent neighbor's property, and one of them, it's hard for me because our surveyors didn't pick it up all the way out, but one of them appears to allow a flow movement from 99 to 2nd.
Okay.
But I don't know, there's a building right there. And then there's also a driveway that's in the back. There's also a driveway that's in the back, and I'm not quite sure if you look at the south corner of that property along Second, right on the property line, you can see in the existing conditions, there's a driveway there as well. And so it may be possible for some of the outdoor storage activities to be moved around so that it could facilitate an entrance and vehicle through movement on either one of the sides of the building.
Okay.
Another thing that we've seen is loading could potentially occur from Second Street unless the city has a problem with that. A vehicle could pull up on the backside of the property on Second Street and loading could occur in that location as well. And that would alleviate the need for the turn movement off of Highway 99, and they could be directed through a signalized intersection down to Second.
Okay.
But we are more than willing to work with them on the front end as well.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Questions for staff? Do we have all the narrative from the applicants in our packet?
You have a notebook on the left that has everything in it. And this file has it in it as well.
Okay. Does anybody want to look at that? Let's take 5 minutes and recess so people can review the applicant's narrative.